Dunkirk wasn't the first place you went to try and help the refugees. How did your journey start? What made you go out there in the first place?
So I first went to Lesvos in November, and I went just because I kept seeing images, like a lot of people do, on the news, and felt that I had to go out and help and do something. So that was my reasoning for going out. When I went to Lesvos, I think I was quite shocked. I have done a lot of travel and I have done volunteer work in Africa before, but the huge migration of people was quite devastating, and I was quite shocked by that huge devastation. Obviously, there's a lot of life, but every single person that comes and lands on the beach has a story, and they're all really horrid stories of persecution, war, fear of being forced into fighting for ISIS. There are a lot of men. Percentage-wise, there are more men that arrive than families or women. So I did ask and speak to quite a few of them, and they said the main reason is because they're a high-risk group in their communities. So the families pull together to pull money and resources together so they can leave their country to escape persecution or being forced into fighting for ISIS, so that they can at least leave and they be safe. And then there were families and children but in general, Lesvos was quite, although it's really heartbreaking and sometimes really difficult to be there, there was an element of hope, because a lot of people came to Lesvos thinking, okay, we're in Europe now, someone will help us. And these people aren't stupid. They know what they're letting themselves in for. They do not expect to be welcomed with open arms. They don't expect gold pavements showing their way. They really do know what to expect. But I think there was still always a level of hope that people would help them, governments would help them. And then when I came back from Lesvos, it really affected me.
It's all right, dear. Just take your time. So you obviously came back, but still had a need to help. It was almost something, now you've got back to normal life. It's something in you that just really couldn't go away, and you wanted to carry on helping the victims.
These people have had lives like us, had families like us. A lot of people had left loved ones at home, and the amount of money it cost to get there. These people had money and sold everything and to escape, and the people that don't have money are still there or in camps on the borders, which is even worse. And so I couldn't turn my back on them, because I thought, God, what would I do if it was my family? I would do anything to look after my children, and so then I had an opportunity to I had a little bit of free time, so I had an opportunity to go to Dunkirk. I didn't really know much about Dunkirk. I kind of accidentally went to the Dunkirk refugee camp, and there are now about 3,000 people there in a small field on the edge of Dunkirk.
When you walked in there, what was your first reaction to what you saw? How could you describe it?
It was almost like walking into a field at Glastonbury Festival, mud, lots of little summer pop-up tents, without any of the prettiness, without any of the flags, without any of the vending, all the colour, without all the vendors, and without the music. People were walking around just in trainers and trying to stay clean. The mud was in some places calf deep, certainly ankle deep most of the places. My first day wasn't too bad because I kind of knew what to expect. So there were lots of people. These people are really kind, good, in general, really kind, good, respectful people. They're always smiling. If you're carrying anything, they ask to help. It really there was a kind of a community atmosphere there where people were helping each other. So it was my first day felt okay. And then the second day, as you start to meet people and talk to people, you realise how hopeless most of them feel. And then it gets a bit more difficult, because you realise that they are desperately trying to move on, but that they just can't move on. And then people would ask me, where are you from? And I'd say the UK, and they'd say, oh, brilliant, we love the UK. Will anyone help us? Will David Cameron change his mind and come and help us? And it's really quite upsetting then to say no.
What would you say to people? We always have the problem with the controversy over immigration and policies, with limiting the amount of people coming in, with perhaps the not enough aid being sent to them. What would you say to the people who make these decisions?
I do understand it's difficult. I do understand that perhaps opening the doors to every single person walking across is perhaps not viable. I understand that there must be a lot of fear with the general public, because they don't know what to expect. Perhaps they're concerned about terrorism, perhaps they're concerned about crime, perhaps they're concerned about the lack of resources. And I do understand that side of things. But when there's so much money being spent on war and bombs and fighting, then I just feel that surely some of that money can be redirected towards human aid. And if not, there must be something that the governments can do to actually bring aid into Dunkirk and to other camps around the areas, because aid is being stopped by the police going in. So there is a certain amount of food and that we can bring in, and medical supplies, but anything, any tents, tarpaulin, any bigger pieces, sometimes gas for cooking, wood for burning, sometimes even gas for cooking weren't allowed in through the barricades. So there's a big barricade, and the police are stopping this aid getting in, and I don't really understand why. And that's obviously comes from French government.
So what can people do? Like you say, you were the person who got from watching the scenes on the television to be proactive, to get out there. If people don't have that opportunity, what can people here do to help the situation?
The easiest thing for us to do is there are petitions that people can sign to then create more talk in governments, in the Houses of Commons, to actually make a difference there. But also there are distribution centres, there are donation centres where people can actively just spend a couple of hours. If all they have is an hour or 2 hours to spend, they can go down to distribution centres and help sort out donations. They can donate. There's a really good local Bristol group called Aid Box Convoy, who are fantastic, supplying a lot of aid to people in Dunkirk, and they have volunteers in Dunkirk camp. So that money goes direct to the refugees, on food, on resources, on anything to help them. And that, so if they wanted to donate money, that's a way to help as well. And really just talking to people, opening your hearts and eyes to really what is happening, and just really thinking about, well, if that was my family, what would I do and where would I go, and just being a bit more open to really what's happening.
If you had one family story or one individual story that really summed up the situation, what were they telling you? How were they?
There was one lady by herself with 4 children. Her name was Gona. She was from Iraq, Kurdish, and her husband had been injured by an ISIS attack. He'd lost his leg, his arm, and he had some internal injuries. And he's still in hospital in Iraq. He didn't die, but he's in hospital. And they made the decision for her to leave with their 4 children. She was pregnant as well. So she left alone, left her husband with her 4 children, and went through Syria, Turkey to Greece. She then went into Northern Europe. I think she went into Belgium and Germany, and there was really no help. So she ended up in France, and she has a couple of cousins in England already. So her idea was, if she gets to France, then maybe her cousins can help her to arrive in England. And then she quickly realised that wasn't the case. She lost her baby, unfortunately, when she arrived in Dunkirk. And so it was quite devastating for her. And she's just the most incredible woman. She manages somehow to keep the children clean. She keeps the area where she's staying clean. She always has a smile, always invites you in for a warm hot drink of milk. And she's just so incredible and so still positive and really just desperately trying to keep it together for her children. But I don't know how long she can keep that together. She's really, you can see every day it's just getting a little bit harder for her. And her story is I can repeat that kind of story a million times, but she's just one person that just really pulled at the heartstrings a little bit more.